Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction is a beloved entry in the Ratchet & Clank franchise for a fair reason. It explores the origins of Ratchet's species, transports our heroes to a new galaxy, and ups the scale of conflict immensely. The narrative beats are a lot more traditional than prior games to suit the sleek Pixar-esque atmosphere on display. It's commendable and high-quality stuff, but it does lose some of its old charms along the way. To start with the positives, exploring and platforming feel more natural and substantial than ever. Tools of Destruction goes well out of its way to bring the focus back on adventure and away from the pure combat of Deadlocked. It has hub areas with non-linear collectible hunts, more gimmicky traversal gadgets than ever, and several sections dedicated solely to platforming gauntlets. There's a commendable variety on display both in the worlds and the methods used to explore them. The gyrocycle and wings and decryptor and gelinator may not feel substantial on their own, but in harmony with one another and the game's galaxy-spanning scale, they create a whole sense of adventure. Even Clank segments are more in the vein of action platformers than solely puzzles. And it may seem like a minor thing, but the rewards for exploring feel pretty substantial. The economy isn't completely busted, so there's a good reason to hoard both kinds of currency, and upgrading your favorite weapons is a reasonable incentive to comb every area thoroughly. Regrettably, the other pillar of gameplay, the shooting, is a real mixed bag. On the one hand, it's hard to deny the variety in enemy types and creative weaponry, but the actual combat is often super sleepy. There are way too many filler fights with a vendor located inside or near the battle arena, making you functionally invincible since you can just buy ammo and health whenever you like. The fights also tend to drag on way too long, with just wave after wave of dead simple opposition. There were several points where I almost fell asleep during play. It's that mindless. Sure, there are a couple tough trials here or there, but those are mostly a result of forced weapon scaling. Your earliest guns, no matter how well upgraded, will be like flicking peas at the later enemies and bosses. It's not as though the game's gotten inherently more challenging itself. So, I mean, the combat's alright at best. It could be a lot better. And that just leaves the writing, which is, not bad on its own merits. All the characters get plenty of screen time, so each of them feels like a meaningful addition to the plot, and everyone has a distinctive personality. There's loads of foreshadowing, they actually manage to find something for Quark to do, which doesn't feel insanely out of character, and there's a real chemistry and contrast between Ratchet and Clank. All that said, the actual story plays things way too safe. It's one of those, but where did the hero really come from narratives, which comes with a lot of emotional weight by default, and instead of a crooked charismatic capitalist as the villain, it's just a dime store evil emperor. It's about as boilerplate as it could be, with only some small splashes of the series' staple irreverent sass. There's practically no nuance on display, and the anti-corporate commentary of prior titles is entirely excised. Consumerism, capitalism, corrupt politics, and the criticism thereof were the heart of the first 4 Ratchet & Clank titles. Those themes don't even get a passing glance in Tools of Destruction, and while you could argue they were already explored to their fullest in Deadlocked, that's not really an excuse. If you've got to rip out the core of your art just to extend its lifespan, then maybe it's already lived long enough. Taken in its cultural context, it's pretty clear Tools of Destruction was meant to be a system seller. It places a sickening overfocus on spectacle, scales back the sardonic storytelling, and presents G-rated facsimiles of its titular duo. There's still a lot of charm and wit on display, but it now feels far more cynical and corporate. Taken as a standalone action platformer, this is still a hyper-polished joyride with personality to spare, but in context with its own franchise, it's a watered-down rehash.